You're wearing sleeves today.
It's cold in the basement.
It'll be good practice for you then.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DLF Trade Show. We are back again. I am your host, Russ Fisher at Dynasty Outhouse. I have my boy Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. Got it the first time without screwing it up. Had to think before I talked, which is probably a good idea in the first place, but I guess not something I necessarily practice. So, and it's gotten me this far. How far have I gotten? I don't know. Not the point. We are here. We did our last episode on Adam Thielen, and it kind of got us thinking about other guys in the same situation. These guys that are quote unquote up there in age. I say that because they are younger than I am, even though I am not a football player, so it's different. But really what we mean is players that their fantasy value is worth more than their dynasty value. You're going to get more production than you will trade value. And this is going to be a fun one because we are part 2 of Dynasty Outhouse Trades and Trade Addicts Leagues, and I'm thrilled about that because it's easy for me to talk about. Well, before we really get into it, how you doing, Addison?
I'm great, man. Good to be back with you and discussing some DLF trades.
Yeah, love it. All right, well, let's just jump straight into it. Trade Addicts Leagues, 12-team Superflex, PPR, tight end premium, 1.75 points per tight end reception, with 0.05 points for return yardage. Though I don't know if either of them, well, one of them definitely doesn't return punts because he's old. The other one could. I don't know if he does. But let's just jump straight into it. This is nice and easy, 1 for 1. Julio Jones for Laviska Shenault. Now, first, before I get into because there's a story, just like last week, there's a story behind this trade. Why don't you first, Addison, run us through the two teams?
I was looking up. They have Jamal Agnew now as the kicker and punt returner on the depth chart.
I feel like that guy is probably my age. I feel like he's been in the league forever.
I was actually curious if Viska returned punts or not.
I feel like he could if they wanted him to.
I think so, yeah. Maybe he's too valuable, but I guess like Antonio Brown did it for the Steelers.
I never understood why they let Antonio Brown return kicks. Like I cringed every time he did, and he never really did that great with it. Just put it out there.
Well, it was always funny when they had like Switzer back there, and then like late game they put AB, and then they like never kicked to it. AB, they were just like no.
Maybe that's why they did it. Just the threat of AB, who doesn't really do that well in kick returns, but it doesn't matter because it's AB.
Yeah. Anyway, so teams here. So Team A, spoiler alert, I'm gonna say it this time. Didn't say it last week, but this is your team.
Yep.
You finished in 3rd place after going 7-6 in the regular season. This was after the dispersal draft, so I made that note last week where I said I wasn't sure if you're rebuilding, reloading, trying to go for it, really the direction you're trying to go in. But your quarterbacks are Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield after losing Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees to retirement. You got James Conner, Tony Pollard, Mark Ingram. Not a lot of great running backs, but that's all right. It's March. Your wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marvin Jones, and now Laviska Shenault. Then you also have Logan Thomas, Gronk, and OJ Howard. I think 2 great players for a tight end premium like this, especially Logan Thomas as well. So that's your team. You gave up Julio. Team B, the team that got Julio for Laviska, they finished in 4th place after going 8-5 with the 3rd highest points for in the league. And it does seem to me that at least that they are contending. They got Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, and Tyrod Taylor, the potential starting quarterback for Houston. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Chris Carson, Chase Edmonds, and Mike Davis, the new Atlanta Falcons running back, at the running back core. Then wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Terry McLaurin. And then tight ends are TJ Hawkinson, and then they have an amalgam of Herndon, Jordan Akins, Ian Thomas, and CJ Uzomah at tight end. So,
man, his team's a lot better than mine. He probably should have finished only one. That just shows the variance in fantasy football. I know my team isn't exactly what it was, but man. All right. Well, okay. So now let's get into the story of what this was. like I talked about in last episode, was I jumped in the second chance dispersal for the hell of it because I like to do things and I was bored at the time. So I drafted this team, and usually when you do a dispersal, you're going to need to rebuild or at least retool a decent amount. So you draft for value in dispersals. So I grabbed Julio, I grabbed Thielen because I figured I'd be able to move them. It got difficult. I started first weeks and weeks ago. I tried to get a first. I started from the 108 to the one. Well, we have the 113 because our toilet bowl gets the consolation pick at the end of the round. I tried from the 108 to the 113, all rejects. I tried for any 22 first, all rejects. So I'm like, all right, this is happening. I go on the message board and the post, the subject, that's the word that I couldn't remember. The subject of the post was Julio frickin' Jones. And the message was, this was on a Friday. Julio Jones will be off my team by the end of Sunday night. Send me your best offer. I'm going to accept the one I like the most. And this was terrifying. Don't get me wrong, because clearly I see I'm not. Yeah, absolutely. Just do something to do something. Why not? I see now that I'm not getting a first. The people that rejected the firsts now aren't going to magically want it now. They're not going to be like, well, other people might give him something, so let me give what I rejected before. No. I was more worried about all the people being, let's see how low I can get Julio for right now. And I did get one or two of those. Off the top of my head, I got a 22 second. I got clearly LaVisca straight up. I got Curtis Samuel and a 22 third, which now is a lot tougher between that one and Visca, but because clearly this was a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah, this is pre-free agency. We need to make sure that everybody knows that this was pre-free agency.
So yes, Curtis Samuel was still a free agent. He was not on the Washington football team. And yeah, I think I got a like the 306 or something. Like people did, obviously, and I would do the exact same thing. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not calling them out for any reason. That you send a crappy offer just in case no one else sends anything. Mm-hmm. Because if they stick to their word, like I absolutely would have, if I only got the 306 offered, I would have taken it just because I said I was going to do it. So I'm going to do it. So at the time I chose Visca straight up, which is really funny because like a week before I did this, I offered Julio for Visca and a third and he rejected it. All right. If that third was really holding you back, man.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I stop and I think about it. Is this a trade I would have accepted if it weren't for this? Clearly, to me, the answer is kind of yes. Because if I send out Visca and the third, I'm just going to take it, Visca. I mean, thirds are nice, but they're not deal breakers in any way, shape, or form. So at least I felt good about getting a trade that I probably would have accepted anyway. But this isn't really about me. Let's jump into the DLF Trade Analyzer and find out what these guys are worth. Julio Jones comes in at 197.7. LaVisca Chenault, 140.5, which is a difference of 57 points. The equivalent of the 303 he rejected. See, I just try and put out perfect trades. That's all I try and do all day, every day. Perfect trades. No, if anyone listening is in a league with me, they just spit out their drink if they were drinking. Yeah. So this is the trade I made. That's the value. It's super close anyway. I do remember the first time Addison and I talked about this trade, Visca was worth more. So like in a matter of 3 weeks, things have changed. But first, well, I jumped the gun. I told you how I felt. I told you how the analyzer felt. So Addison, first, why don't you say how you feel about this trade? And then what do you think of the analyzer's analysis? I couldn't think of a better word of the trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's different now looking at it with the knowledge that the Jaguars signed Marvin Jones, in free agency, and Curtis Samuel now went to be the wide receiver 2 in Washington on at least those 2 trades. Julio, at least nothing has changed for him. There's still those rumors that he potentially could be like a draft day move, maybe him and Matt Ryan. But I really don't think that's happening. Matt Ryan had like a whole contract restructure. I think they're just going to kind of go for it again. So Julio, at least production-wise, I think is back in a wide receiver 1 situation still. So I've never really been a Visca guy, like even coming out of like college and going to Jacksonville, and then even all the hype with him being the wide receiver too whenever Trevor Lawrence gets there. I've never been that type of a fan of Visca. I get the Julio trading a descending asset because no matter what Julio does, he could be the wide receiver 5, from here until he's like 34, 35 years old. And it's not going to matter. His price is going to drop every single year because his age is going up.
Yep.
Visca, well, he's 22 right now. And even if he does like something, or Marvin Jones goes away in a couple years, he's still going to be like, well, he's still with Trevor Lawrence. He's still like super young. He's still climbing. So it's that descending for the ascending asset kind of thing. And so I like it from that aspect, but I am on the Julio Jones side of this one. I think it makes a lot of sense. But I think it makes sense for your team as well to kind of move off of the aging asset for the ascending asset. But I think it makes sense for the team who got Julio because now, he's going for that championship. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs as a duo. He's got Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones who could both produce as wide receiver ones in the same week. You pair that with Terry McLaurin. You got, a solid running back core of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Chris Carson who went back to Seattle. TJ Hawkinson at tight end, who seems like he's the only guy in Detroit right now. And I mean, he's going for it. So to give up Visca, who I don't even know if it is going to be a wide receiver 2, like a top 25 wide receiver in production, maybe not even top 30 wide receiver in production next year, and going for Julio makes so much more sense to me for him in this move. Although I don't know if the third would have really made a difference if that was really what he's going for. But at least the analysis of Visca straight up for Julio, that's where I'm at.
All right, real quick before I remind you that you need to say how you feel about the values in the trade analyzer. How dare you let that disrespect of Terrell Williams come out of your mouth?
Okay, I'm sorry.
The Gazelle is going to feast in Detroit.
If they don't bring in anybody, yeah. If Jamar Chase isn't their pick at like 107, then sure.
Oh no, absolutely not. I loved, probably just because I had him when Keenan Allen got hurt all those years ago, and Terrell Williams did really well on the Chargers.
A top 15 wide receiver.
Yeah, and then did absolutely nothing. Like the next year, he did absolutely nothing, and then he was a free agent after that, and he goes to the Raiders, who just didn't even use him, and then he got hurt, and it's really just me sticking to that 1 year where he did me good.
Right? You can never forget.
Whoa, that was a lot of noise. So, yeah, the joking about, well, half joking about Terrell Williams because I still have a ton of shares, so I want him to do great. So what you're saying is taking situation of our two teams out of it. Do you think Julio Jones is worth more than Laviska Shenault right now?
Now, yes.
I mean, now's all that matters, right? Because now is when we pull the values from the analyzer. Right.
Pre-free agency, I probably would have said no, because like Visca was getting all this hype, like I said, as a wide receiver 2 for Trevor Lawrence. Urban Meyer could maybe use him correctly, like he did with like Curtis Samuel and other gadgety type players at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. That was really all the hype that was building up for Visca's value. But now I don't really see that happening, and I like Julio Jones. Like I think he's solid as long as he's on the field. He's getting like 16 points per game just in receptions and yards, and Matt Ryan's still going to throw the ball like 600 times.
Yep.
I would take Julio over Visca in a vacuum, and then in probably most situations as well, unless I'm truly rebuilding.
Yeah, which I absolutely, actually 100% agree with you for. This is absolutely me being bad at fantasy football. I mean, the smart move, which I will never follow, is to be patient. Wait for the season to start. Wait for people to set a lineup and see that they're weak at wide receiver. Wait till Julio goes 2 games into the season and, like you said, puts up 16 points a week. And people will care a little less about his age because the point of the game is to win. Let's herm it out. You play to win the game. And Julio Jones will help you win this year. He'll probably help you win next year. Maybe not the year after that. Calvin Ridley, let's go all the way. But I 100% agree. Julio Jones, I think, should be worth more. I think most people should want Julio on their team more than Laviska. But that age, we are, I think we're at the point of outsmarting ourselves with age. Like, I think we need to recognize that some people, it may not matter as much as others, and then just stop completely avoiding people once they hit 28. Like, trying to trade Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins right now is just, but that's not what the show's about. So we both said how we felt. We both said how we feel about the analyzer. So I think this wraps up pretty nicely. It shows that trade value, while in a vacuum, is wonderful. Situation absolutely matters. Julio Jones was doing no good on my team. I am trying to rebuild a bit, so I don't necessarily want Julio's points. I want to. Well, I mean, I have Herbert on my team, so fingers crossed my team isn't going to do too well. But I don't want to make the playoffs. Let's put it that way. And I think Julio would probably make me too good of a team. So getting that younger asset that can gain value, especially if I don't plan on necessarily holding on to him. Like you said before, his value is going to go up or at least stay just because of his age and team situation. So, and Julio's just going to keep going down. He could be the wide receiver 1, and he's still not going to be a top 20 dynasty wide receiver. It's just the unfortunate truth. So I loved this trade again because it's a perfect example of what works with 2 players in one league won't work with 2 players in another league, because this worked perfectly with one competing team and one retooling team. But if you have Julio Jones and a team you're competing and someone offers you LaVisca, why are you going to do that? There's no reason to do that. So that's the reason, A, I was glad I got this trade done, and B, why you brought up the idea. Like, I remember we were just talking about Julio Jones trades. You're like, why don't we do a show about this? I'm like, we should do a show about this. So I'm glad you brought up that idea, because I thought this was a very good trade.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm all in.
All right. Well, we're done talking about this really good trade, and as long as I still feel good about it, that's all that really matters to me. But this has been yet another episode of the DLF Trade Show with me, your host, Russ Fisher, at Dynasty Outhouse. That way, my boy, Maze Hayes _ Addison Hayes. I said it in the wrong order because my brain went the wrong way, but I still got the words right. That's what matters, and we'll see you next time.